Hey folks, all right, it is time. I am ready to dive into the carving on this thing, and I'm really excited, but a little bit nervous too, especially about this G, because I just don't know exactly how it's going to react when I carve this. So everything's going to be outset here. Now let me talk a little bit about an issue that I realized, and this is something that you guys I think really ought to take into account. Before I ever started carving, I wanted to find out, make sure that my base was going to ride smooth. Now on here, because I have a little bit of a dip in the center of this board, even more so on this end, not as much on this end, but there is still a little bit of a dip. What I was finding is that my base just wasn't sliding freely, and I need that thing to slide good. So down here, it's pretty good. Now what was happening is, in this area, I could feel it just really holding back. So what I did was I used some paste wax, and I just put some paste wax on it and then on the base plate itself, and now it slides very smooth. So let me show you. Let's move down to the other end and I'll show you what I mean. So down here, this is where I really have a dip. I'm not worried about it overall on the overall project, and we'll get into the reason why, but if you kind of, I don't know if you can hear that, but it just is not sliding very smooth. It's sliding okay. So what I did was I took, I'll use this for right now. I had a little tool for opening that, but anyway, so I've already got paste wax on my base, but what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of a paste wax on the actual board on my layout, and gosh darn it, it's actually smearing, which is not really what I wanted. So what I'll do is I'll just put my paste wax above and below, and that looks like it did kind of smear my layout. Funny thing is, it didn't do that on the other end. I think it's going to be okay. I'll make it work, but it did kind of smear that primer. So what I'll do is I'll just keep that paste wax above and below the layout. Now in retrospect, I could have sprayed it real quick with the acrylic, and that probably would have sealed that primer in, and then I could have waxed it, and it probably would have been fine, but you can see it came off on my fingers. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up the depth on this thing, and then put all this other stuff away, and we'll come back and get into the carving. All right, folks, so let's get into this. So because I've never carved this before, I'm going to be really careful, take my time. This is, again, is Gamble Oak, and I'm really nervous in this whole area here, so I'm going to get that done first. And I'm going to carve a lot deeper than 1/8 of an inch, but I'm starting at 1/8 of an inch just because I want to see what this thing will cut like. So here we go. Well, folks, all I can say is I was right to be worried about it. It is what I was telling Vicky, you know, when we were, I sped up the video so you guys couldn't hear, but what I was telling her is that in retrospect, I really wish I had run this rather than just using my electric plane. I wish I'd have used my my planer sled and flattened this thing out. It's not that the board cuts tough, which it does. I took it at 1/8 of an inch, and then I think I'm probably about 3/16 right now, just my guess. It's not that the board cuts that tough, but that base is really causing me issues. So I'm going to keep going. Now, what I could do, and if it gets worse down at the other end, then what I will do is there's an option of being able to have that base slide a little bit better, but I'm not going to do that until I do a little bit more. So I am going to this is, by the way, this is the profile bit, and I just sharpened it so it's as sharp as it can get, but I'm not liking my lines around there. I'm going to go and I'm going to touch that up a little bit more around there to where I get all those bobbles out. And then when we come back, I'll start on, I'll probably go ahead and do the rest of this end of it and then move my way down to the other end. So we'll be right back. All right, folks, so I need to explain something to you. On the last scene, I said if I kept having problems down at the other end, if I kept having problems, I'd figure out a way that I could, that my base could hold, could go smoother. So here's what I've done, and this has always been kind of this has been something that I've advised people over the years of a way that you could get by if you've got something with a rough surface. Let's say you've got an old piece of barnwood, or you've got an old piece of something that has got a rough surface that the plate really won't slide smooth on. So let me show you what I did. I have to turn this around. This is set at, it's set at about 3/16, something like that. But what I did, I carved this letter, and this, you can see this is a little bit deeper than these two. And again, I can measure the depth. I've got a little feeler gauge. I can measure, or a little gauge. That is almost 1/4 of an inch right here. These aren't anywhere near that. They're probably about 1/8 of an inch, something like that. Yep, they're right at 1/8 of an inch. So let me show you what I did. When the base plate is down, it's not wanting to slide smooth because of some of the roughness. What I was doing, I was kind of holding the base plate up on one side, and then just this riding on the edge worked out pretty well. So what I did was I just took a piece of, this is actually a piece of printed paneling stuff, but it's MDF on the back and it's pretty smooth. So what I did is I am letting this, no, didn't mean to do that. I'm letting this side of the base plate actually ride on there as it's cutting. So even though it's at an angle, I'm not worried about the depth. I worry more about the width of the cut. So let me show you how much better this is working out. Let's see, turn my light on. So I think I'm at about 1/8 of an inch, but the closer I move this, the shallower it goes. The further I move this away, obviously the deeper it goes. So I think I was right about there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that O and see if my theory holds out. So you see I stayed kind of away from the line most of the places, but you can see it's deeper over here than it is over here because I was further away from where my base plate was riding. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this thing pretty deep. Like, I think if I was actually measuring the depth here, I'm way over 1/4 of an inch. But again, I'm not going to be carving that deep because the actual base plate's up on this side. So let's give this a shot here. So now if we actually measure that depth over here, I think it was obviously deeper. I'm right at 1/4 of an inch on that. I don't know. Can you see that, babe? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm right at 1/4 of an inch, probably a little bit less here. Yep, a little bit less, a little over 3/16 there. And I'll be shallower here than I would be there. But it's giving me what I want, which I don't really care about the depth. I want the width of the cut, and I want to be able to hold a line. And so again, what I'm trying to do is make the best of a bad situation where I've got a board that's uneven that my base will not ride on. And that is, again, I've advised a lot of people over the years, when you've got a board that you're having a tough time holding a line, which most of the time when I give that advice, it's to somebody that's brand new, that you need the most control that you can have, and to go shallow and then go back and go deeper. Now I'm taking that advice myself, even though I've got a pretty steady hand. The combination of this oak that is really gnarly and the uneven surface, I'm having to work around it. So you have to kind of just problem solve, and that's really kind of the whole idea of this thing, is be able to solve problems. And if you're having issues with a board, now I'm here as a resource.
Went totally black screen there for a second.
Oh, you went dark?
Yeah,
to darken it up. So you know, I'm here as a resource that I've done so many things over 50 years in ways to solve problems that I'm absolutely here. You can ask me questions and maybe I can come up and have kind of run across that. Probably I have. But this is something that I haven't really run across this issue before, because I'm always so adamant that I want that shape on the surface of my board rather than that shape. And that very rarely comes up where I have to deal with that shape. And now I'm regretting not really running this with my router sled and flattening that thing out, but I'm making the best of a bad situation. Anyway, I'm rambling. So I'm going to finish this up, these letters up. I've got to go make the C and the dot, I've got to make that deeper. And then finish up that end. Then we're going to go down to the other end and see how that's going to work out. So we'll be back in a minute. All right, folks, so you can see I have got these letters cut from the end, pretty much full depth. Yeah, it's pretty much full depth of what I want, from the I through the G in the end and all the way back to the end. So now I am actually working my way back to the other end. But unfortunately, we're out of time, so I am going to back this up and get in front of the camera there. All right, so that is it for today. On the next video, I'm going to go ahead and show you what it's going to be like cutting the other end of that, where that real dip is going. But I think that using this board as kind of a shelf for the side of the base plate to ride on is going to work for me. So you guys will follow along with me. Hopefully you will. Anyway, guys, that is it for this one. But this one is challenging, and we've just started. So I don't even know how many videos this is going to take, because even after I get done with all this, then I need to go into the next segment. So I hope you guys stay with me and see how this thing kind of evolves, but it might take a couple weeks. I'm not sure yet. We'll kind of play it by ear and see. But I'm excited about it. So I hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you guys stick with us, and we will see you on the next video, which will probably be on Monday, the next video on this project. And we love you. Thanks again. If you have any questions, email me, eric@makeawoodsign.com. There's the website. If you need any supplies, you know where we're at. So have a great one, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.